Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. The woman God favors doesn't have to chase anybody. She doesn't have to run after love, after attention, after acceptance. Because when you are chosen, when you are marked by favor, you stand still, and what is meant for you finds its way to your doorstep. You hear me? That's power. That's purpose. That's alignment. Some of you have spent too many nights wondering why you weren't enough for somebody to stay. You spent too many mornings waking up trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't see it if it slapped them in the face. You were chasing scraps when God was preparing a feast. You were running after people who were never qualified to walk beside you. See, when you really know who you are, when you know who your creator is, you don't hustle for crumbs. You don't beg for validation. You don't compromise your values to fit in rooms you were never called to. You attract by simply being who you were designed to be. Favor does what force never could. I need you to understand that there is a time and a season for everything. And when you're out here chasing, you're telling God to press your timing. But the woman who is favored knows she can take her hands off the steering wheel. She can breathe. She can rest. Because what has her name on it cannot be stolen, delayed, or denied. When you embody grace, when you walk with conviction, when you refuse to shrink to make others comfortable, you become magnetic. People see it. They feel it. They respect it. That's attraction. That's the power of a woman who is anchored in her purpose. So stop chasing people who don't see your light. Stop exhausting yourself trying to fit into spaces that can't hold your greatness. If they wanted to stay, they would. If it was meant to work, it would. Don't force open doors God already closed. You were not created to be. This woman has tasted the sting of rejection before, but it no longer defines her. She has learned that the world's rejection is often God's redirection. She has been overlooked, underestimated, and misunderstood. And still, she refuses to let bitterness grow roots in her heart because she knows that validation from people is fleeting. She knows that one day they may applaud you, and the next day they may criticize you. She has outgrown the need to tie her value to the shifting opinions. It's about living in agreement with the truth of who she is and who she was created to be. It's about embracing her strengths and her weaknesses with the same compassion. It's about understanding that her worth was established long before anyone else had an opinion about her. She has learned to quiet the inner critic that demands she do more, be more. She has learned to sit still in the knowledge that she is already loved, already accepted, already worthy. This woman carries herself with a quiet strength that doesn't require an audience. She is not interested in performing for approval because she has discovered the joy of living authentically. She is not willing to sacrifice her peace to maintain a false image. She has learned that the most powerful validation she can receive is the peace that comes from knowing she is exactly where she is meant to be, becoming exactly who she is meant to become. When you are chosen, you don't have to announce it. You don't have to convince people to see it. You simply live it. And in time, what is meant for you will recognize you. The opportunities, the relationships, the blessings, they will come not because you begged for them, but because you were prepared for them. This is the difference between striving and aligning. This is the difference between insecurity and confidence. This is the difference between chasing and attracting. A woman favored by God has learned that chasing validation is a race that never ends. No matter how much approval she gathers, it is never enough to fill the emptiness that comes from not knowing her true worth. But when she decides to stand in her identity as chosen, when she decides to release the need to be constantly validated, she finds freedom. She finds peace. She finds herself that she trusts divine timing instead of chasing what isn't meant for her. That trust did not appear overnight. It was born in the long, quiet seasons when nothing made sense and everything in her wanted to reach out, grab hold of something, anything to feel in control again. She has learned often through heartbreak and disappointment that chasing what is not meant for her only leads to more emptiness. She has discovered the exhausting cycle of forcing doors open, only to find the rooms behind them were never equipped to hold her purpose or her peace. Over time, she began to realize that when she tries to accelerate her journey by her own strength alone, she ends up delaying the very blessings she's been praying for, because what you chase in desperation will never satisfy you the way what you receive in alignment does. So she made a decision, a quiet, resolute decision to surrender her timeline to something greater than her own understanding. She has tasted the anxiety that comes from feeling behind, from comparing her life to others who seem to be ahead. But when she paused long enough to listen to the whisper of God reminding her that delay does not mean denial, she felt something shift inside her. The frantic energy that once made her believe she had to rush, to compete, to push harder, started to lose its hold. She recognized that no matter how hard she tried, she could not manufacture what only divine timing could produce. In that surrender, she found peace. She began to see that waiting is not a punishment, but a preparation. She began to trust that the pauses in her life were not empty spaces, but sacred spaces, designed to strengthen her character and expand her capacity to receive more than she could ever imagine. She learned to embrace the slow seasons instead of resenting them, because she realized that these were the very seasons where she was being refined. She stopped measuring the worth of her life by how quickly things came together. She started to see that some of the most important things take time to grow. Roots first, before branching. Purpose requires depth, not just visibility. And when she looks back now, she sees how every delay was really a gift, a moment when she was protected from something she thought she wanted but could not have sustained. Her trust in divine timing has taught her to discern the difference between impatience and intuition. Impatience demands immediate gratification. It shouts that she must act now or risk missing her moment. But intuition, that still small voice within, urges her to be present and patient. It tells her that what is meant for her will not pass her by, that the right relationships, the right opportunities, the right revelations will appear at exactly the moment they are supposed to. When she remembers the time she tried to force outcomes, she also remembers the heaviness that followed, the regret of compromising herself just to hold on to something that was never destined to last, the exhaustion of trying to sustain connections that drained her spirit, the disappointment that came when her own efforts fell short of her expectations. Each of these experiences has become a teacher, reminding her that there is a gentler, wiser way to move through the world. She has chosen to become the kind of woman who doesn't settle for counterfeit blessings. She refuses to grab hold of what glitters but lacks substance. She no longer entertains the illusions that promise quick satisfaction but leave her emptier than before. Trusting divine timing has given her the discernment to know when to wait and when to act, when to release and when to hold on. In a culture that celebrates hustle and hurry, she has chosen to honor the pace of grace. She has learned to find beauty in the unfolding, in the slow blossoming of dreams. She has made peace with not knowing how every detail will work out, because she has seen how life has a way of surprising her in the most beautiful ways when she stops trying to control everything. Trusting divine timing has also allowed her to focus on her own growth instead of obsessing over outcomes. She pours herself into becoming the healthiest, most grounded version of herself. She invests in her character, her healing, her faith, and her purpose. She no longer sees waiting as wasted time, but as an essential part of her preparation. Every season of waiting has given her gifts she would have never received if everything had arrived on her schedule. She has learned to let go of relationships that are out of alignment without bitterness. She no longer feels the need to cling to people who don't value her. She trusts that if someone is meant to stay in her life, they will find their way back without her having to chase them down. This trust frees her from performing, pretending, or pleading for love. It allows her to rest in the knowing that real connections will endure and forced ones will always crumble. When she feels that familiar pull to chase what isn't meant for her, she remembers all the times she settled and regretted it later. She remembers how striving drained her joy and made her question her worth. She reminds herself that nothing forced ever lasts, and nothing truly hers will require her to betray herself to keep it. This trust is not passive. It is an active decision she makes every day. It requires her to quiet her fears and anchor herself in faith. It calls her to release timelines, to surrender expectations, and to open her hands to receive what is meant to be. And though it isn't always easy, she knows it is worth it. Because every time she has trusted divine timing, she has been met with outcomes far better than what she imagined for herself. Trusting divine timing has softened her heart and strengthened her spirit. She has learned that patience is not weakness, but power. It is the confidence to wait without anxiety. It is the courage to believe that she doesn't have to manipulate her way into blessing. It is the grace to release control and allow life to unfold as it is meant to. She has become a woman who no longer feels threatened by other people's progress. She can celebrate their wins without feeling like she's losing, because she knows that her journey is uniquely her own and nothing anyone else does can diminish what is meant for her. She understands that comparison is a distraction from her purpose. So she turns her gaze inward, focusing on her own path with gratitude and hope. Trusting divine timing has given her a quiet assurance that she is always where she is supposed to be, even when the evidence doesn't yet match the vision. She has learned to hold her dreams with open hands, to pursue them with passion, but release the outcome. No. She moves forward without desperation because she knows that what is for her cannot be taken away. She has discovered that when she lets go of chasing, she creates space for receiving. When she stops grasping for what she thinks she needs, she becomes available for what she truly needs. And often it looks nothing like she imagined, but exactly what she was waiting for all along. This trust has liberated her from the pressure to prove herself. She no longer needs to rush milestones or achieve arbitrary goals to feel worthy. She knows that her value is inherent, not contingent on timelines or achievements. She carries herself with a peace that doesn't require explanation because it is rooted in the relationship with the one who orchestrates all things in perfect timing. Every day, she chooses to trust that what is meant for her is already on its way. She reminds herself that she does not have to fight for her destiny. She only has to be faithful to her process and receptive to the gifts that will meet her along the way. This is her strength. This is her freedom. This is her quiet revolution in a world obsessed with instant gratification. She trusts divine timing instead of chasing what isn't meant for her because she knows she is worthy of blessings that don't have to be forced. God, her quiet confidence attracts the right relationships and opportunities. It's not a loud or boastful energy that announces itself to everyone she meets. It's subtle, almost unassuming, but powerful in a way that words cannot fully capture. There's something about a woman who knows who she is and does not need to explain herself that draws people in. They feel safe in her presence, not because she demands attention, but because she carries a calm assurance that speaks louder than any performance ever could. People are naturally drawn to her because she doesn't wear desperation. Like a perfume, she doesn't have to convince anyone of her worth. She isn't constantly scanning the room for approval or clinging to others to feel significant. She has learned that the right connections cannot be forced into existence through striving. Instead, she allows them to emerge organically, trusting that the right souls will recognize her spirit and the right doors will open when she is ready to walk through them. This quiet confidence comes from a deep understanding of her value. She no longer believes she must be perfect to be loved, worthy, or chosen. She has embraced her flaws as part of her humanity, not as disqualifiers of her destiny. And when she made peace with herself, something shifted. She stopped performing for acceptance. And ironically, that is when genuine relationships began to form. People can sense when someone is settled within themselves. They can feel when a woman is whole without needing to be completed by another person. This wholeness becomes a magnetic force. It draws people who are also grounded, who are also searching for real connection rather than shallow validation. Her quiet confidence filters out those who thrive on drama or manipulation. Such people have no power over someone who refuses to be intimidated or guilted into compliance. Her confidence is not about arrogance, it's about presence. It's about showing up fully in each moment, knowing she doesn't have to shrink or embellish to be accepted. She doesn't compete with anyone because she understands that her purpose is unique and cannot be stolen. She doesn't gossip or tear others down to feel superior. She celebrates other people's success without feeling threatened because she knows there is enough room for everyone to thrive. This energy makes her trustworthy. People feel they can confide in her without fear of judgment or betrayal. They know that she listens with intention, that she speaks with honesty, and that she values integrity over appearances. In a world where many are trying to prove something, her calm confidence is refreshing. It is the unspoken invitation that says, you don't have to pretend around me. Because she is secure, she doesn't rush relationships. She understands that time reveals what words can hide. She allows connections to develop naturally without forcing intimacy or demanding commitment before it's earned. This patience attracts people who are genuine, people who respect her boundaries, people who value depth over convenience. Opportunities also find their way to her because she shows up ready. She doesn't wait for the perfect moment to begin becoming the person she wants to be. She works quietly behind the scenes, refining her skills, growing her character, expanding her capacity to lead and love well. When doors open, she doesn't hesitate because she knows she is prepared for them long before anyone was watching. Her quiet confidence has taught her that she doesn't have to be loud to be influential. She doesn't have to dominate a conversation to be heard. When she speaks, people listen because they can feel the sincerity in her words. She doesn't use her voice to impress. She uses it to inspire. She doesn't crave the spotlight because she understands that true impact isn't measured by attention, but by authenticity. When challenges come, she faces them without crumbling. She doesn't panic because she trusts her resilience. She knows that setbacks are temporary and that her worth is not diminished by failure. This steadiness makes her a calming presence for others. In times of uncertainty, people look to her for reassurance, drawn to the quiet conviction that everything will work out in the end. Her confidence attracts mentors and allies because people in positions of influence are always looking for those who can carry responsibility with grace. They see that she isn't easily rattled, that she doesn't need constant validation, and that she can handle success without losing her humility. These qualities make her a natural fit for opportunities that require maturity and discernment. In her friendships, her quiet confidence creates an environment where vulnerability can flourish. Her loved ones feel free to be themselves because she models what it looks like to embrace imperfection. She doesn't compete for affection or attention. She doesn't keep score of who did what. She simply shows up fully present, offering acceptance without conditions. Romantic relationships, too, are transformed by this energy. She no longer chases people who can't see her worth. She no longer tries to earn love through overgiving or compromising her values. She waits for someone whose spirit recognizes her own, someone who doesn't need convincing or coaxing to appreciate what she offers. Because she is anchored in her own identity, she doesn't feel the need to control the relationship. She allows space for freedom and individuality, understanding that real love is never coerced. It is chosen, Dave. Her quiet confidence has given her the courage to walk away when something isn't right. She doesn't linger where she is merely tolerated. She doesn't settle for relationships that drain her or opportunities that compromise her peace. She has learned that saying no is often the most loving thing she can do for herself and others. She trusts that what belongs to her will never require her to abandon herself. This trust has transformed her life from a series of transactions, doing things to get something in return, into a journey of authentic expression. She shows up because she wants to, not because she feels she has to. She contributes because it brings her joy, not because she needs recognition. This quiet confidence is also why she is resilient in the face of disappointment. When something doesn't work out, she doesn't internalize it as a reflection of her inadequacy. She simply understands that it wasn't aligned and trusts that something better is on its way. Her self-worth is not contingent on whether people approve or whether plans succeed on her timeline. Every day she chooses to believe that she is enough exactly as she is. She doesn't wait for external achievements to validate her existence. She celebrates her small wins, honors her growth, and remains grateful for every lesson. This mindset frees her from the pressure to prove herself and allows her to enjoy the journey without constant anxiety. Her quiet confidence becomes a beacon for those who are searching for authenticity. It shows others that it is possible to be strong without being domineering, to be kind without being naive, to be humble without diminishing your own light. She is proof that you don't have to sacrifice your peace to be successful, that you don't have to betray yourself to be loved. In every room she enters, she carries herself with the unshakable belief that she belongs. Not because she is better than anyone else, but because she is simply being herself. This presence changes the atmosphere. It inspires others to rise to their own potential. to stop chasing external validation, and to begin cultivating an inner confidence that can never be taken away. Her life is a testament to the truth that when you stand in your authenticity, when you embody quiet confidence, you don't have to go searching for what is meant for you. The right people will find you. The right opportunities will recognize you. The right doors will open. And you will be ready to walk through them without hesitation, fully assured that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. She lets go of striving because she knows God's favor does the work she can't. There is a quiet freedom in her that didn't come easily or quickly. It was forged in the hidden spaces where she wrestled with the fear that if she ever stopped trying so hard, everything would fall apart. For years, she believed that her value was measured by how much she accomplished, how perfectly she performed. She wore herself out chasing perfection that always stayed a few steps out of reach, but slowly, gently, she started to hear another voice. One that whispered that she was already enough without all the striving. At first, this idea terrified her. What would happen if she stopped overworking to hold everything together? What would happen if she released her relentless grip on every outcome? She was so used to depending on her own strength that the thought of leaning on something she couldn't see felt like surrendering to uncertainty. But somewhere deep in her spirit, she also knew there had to be more to life than exhaustion, more than proving, more than pretending, more than performing for approval that never truly satisfied her. In her moments of quiet, she started to realize that her striving wasn't making her more worthy. It was only making her more tired. It was robbing her of peace and blinding her to the truth that God had already gone before her to prepare the way. She began to understand that there are doors she could never force open, no matter how hard she tried. And there are blessings she could never earn through effort alone. Some things are simply gifts of grace, and grace does not respond to striving. It responds to trust. So she made the brave decision to loosen her grip on the plan she had scripted so carefully. She began to pray differently, not asking God to bless her striving, but asking Him to help her trust His provision. She started to believe that when she did her part faithfully, she could rest in knowing that God would do the part she never could. She began to walk through her days with less panic and more purpose, less fear and more faith. Letting go of striving didn't mean she stopped working hard or stopped caring about excellence. It meant she stopped believing that everything depended on her alone. It meant she started to embrace the possibility that God's favor could accomplish in a moment what her effort could not accomplish in years. She stopped measuring her worth by her productivity. She stopped defining success as the accumulation of achievements. Instead, she began to define success as obedience and trust. Her life began to shift in ways she didn't expect. When she stopped trying to prove herself to everyone, she started to feel lighter. When she released her obsession with outcomes, she began to notice the beauty in each step of the process. She saw how God's favor showed up in the small details she would have overlooked before, the unexpected opportunities, the chance encounters, the quiet reassurance that she was held even when nothing was certain. She found herself able to rest in seasons that used to make her anxious. She stopped rushing ahead, trying to outrun her fears. Instead, she learned to sit in the present moment, trusting that if she was where God wanted her to be, she lacked nothing essential. She realized that striving is often rooted in scarcity, the belief that there isn't enough time, enough love, enough success to go around. But favor is rooted in abundance. It reminds her that she doesn't have to compete for what is already hers. When she looks back on her journey, she sees how many times her striving actually delayed the blessings she was meant to receive. She remembers the relationships she tried to force, the opportunities she chased even when her spirit felt uneasy. She remembers the exhaustion that came from trying to manipulate outcomes, and she feels grateful that she doesn't have to live that way anymore. She has learned that when she lets go, she creates space for God to work. There is a confidence that comes from trusting favor over force. It's a confidence that doesn't shout but radiates quietly. She no longer feels the need to explain or justify every decision. She doesn't have to convince people of her worth or argue for her place at the table. She knows that what is divinely assigned to her cannot be taken by anyone else. This assurance gives her the courage to release what isn't aligned, to say no to what drains her spirit, to walk away from what isn't meant for her in her work. She still shows up with diligence and integrity, but she no longer burns herself out trying to control every outcome. She sets her goals and takes action, but she holds it all with open hands. She does her part and then releases it, trusting that God's favor will breathe life into her efforts. This surrender has freed her from the pressure to be perfect. She understands that she is human, that she will make mistakes, and that grace covers what her effort cannot. Her relationships have also transformed because of this trust. She no longer clings to people out of fear of being alone. She no longer compromises her values to be accepted. She believes that the right people will be drawn to her by the same favor that guides her steps. She has learned that love that requires constant striving is not love at all. She knows that real connection grows in spaces where both people can be fully themselves without fear of rejection. She has become a woman who inspires others, not because she is the loudest or the most accomplished, but because her peace is unmistakable. People notice the way she moves through life with open hands and an open heart. They see that she is not driven by fear, but by faith. They feel the calm that comes from knowing that she is not alone in her journey. Her example reminds them that they too can let go of the need to control everything. But letting go of striving has also allowed her to rediscover joy. The joy that comes from from showing up each day with gratitude instead of anxiety. She laughs more freely. She dreams without limitation. She believes that the future holds good things, not because she will earn them through effort, but because she is loved by a God who delights in blessing her. Every day she chooses to surrender her plans and her worries. She prays, God, I trust you to do what I can. This simple prayer has become her anthem. It has become the foundation she stands on when uncertainty tries to shake her. It has become the reminder that she doesn't have to live life constantly striving to prove her worth or earn favor. She already has it. This revelation has changed the way she sees herself and her purpose. She no longer feels behind. She no longer feels unworthy. She no longer feels like she has to hustle for every blessing. She believes that God's favor can open doors she doesn't even know exist. She trusts that what he has prepared for her is far greater than what she could have achieved through striving alone. She wakes up each morning with a sense of expectancy, not anxiety. She shows up ready to do her part, but free from the pressure to be everything to everyone. She has learned that there is nothing noble about burnout, nothing heroic about living in constant stress. She knows now that real strength is found in surrender. Real courage is trusting that she doesn't have to earn what God has already promised. She lets go of striving because she has tasted the freedom of living in grace. She has seen how favor finds her in unexpected ways. She has felt the relief that comes from knowing she is not responsible for carrying the weight of the world on her shoulder. She has embraced the truth that she is already loved, already chosen, already enough. When you finally stop chasing, striving, and proving, you discover a freedom that no amount of effort could ever create. You learn that the woman God favors doesn't have to beg for validation because she already knows she is chosen. She trusts divine timing instead of forcing what isn't meant for her. She carries a quiet confidence that attracts the right people and opportunities without needing to perform. And she lets go of relentless striving because she believes that God's favor can accomplish what her own strength never could. In this space of surrender, she finds peace. In this trust, in this alignment, she finds everything she was searching for, waiting patiently to meet her right where she is.